She got pregnant on the streets of Accra and abandoned by family and friends to her fate. That's the story of Rebecca, who is suffering from mental illness. Her story exposes the gap in the mental health care delivery system in Ghana, despite passing the Mental Health Act in 2012. There are a lot of such persons on our streets, but who will fight for the right of these mentally challenged persons? We'll have advocates for such persons in the studio shortly, but before then, here are excerpts of our latest hotline documentary, Mind to Mind, by Nancy Emefajodosi.
According to the Mental Health Authority, in 2017, it was estimated that about 4 million Ghanaians out of the estimated population of 28 million at the time were suffering from mild to severe mental illness. Rebecca is one of those. She's lived on the streets of Adenta for many days. She doesn't know what she does every day. She doesn't know who got her pregnant or that she's even pregnant. In this documentary, I tell you a story about Rebecca, whose story represents the major lapses in the social welfare system in Ghana and the deficiencies in the care for people with mental illness. Inside the Pantine Hospital are stories of people who have had different experiences in life, some of which have cost them the sanity of their thoughts. Rebecca was brought here by neighbors and some officials of the Adenta Municipal Assembly after she was found in labor somewhere on the streets of Adenta. Rebecca appears confused, but she realizes that she has a child now. She may be lost in her thoughts, but she knows where she is, and she hates being here. Rebecca's aunt, who we choose to call Issy, says her family is not financially capable of taking care of the baby.
Me can miss me baba with baby 2 months. And tonight, me to me, Mrs. Adia, and can you find
When you look at the law, mental health service is meant to be free. All these talk about Ghana being a very hospitable and all those things, it's a sham. If we are that responsible, hospitable, then we'll be taking care of these things. We won't wait for foreigners to come and then receive them nicely when our kids and kin are roaming the streets naked.
In the studio with me is Cecilia Seno. She is the Executive Director of Hope for Future Generations, an NGO championing the health right of the mentally disabled. She's also a member of the coalition of NGOs in health and immediate past Vice President. Good afternoon, and I'm grateful that you joined us in this conversation.
Good afternoon. I'm also very grateful.
Let's start with how deeply rooted the stigma for mentally retarded people is in this country.
Yes, it is very high, because we believe that somebody with mental health problem has nothing to do in this world. And usually we isolate them, we tie them. The stigma is so high. And even among the family, the person's real family, direct family siblings, stigma is very high and they are neglected. They are socially outcasts, and I think we are not there for them. And it's rather unfortunate that we treat human beings just like us, forgetting that mental health is not just throwing or being naked, but many of us are also having the same problem. Because if you look at the situational analysis by WHO, about the total population that we have as a country, 650,000 are suffering from a severe mental disorder, and a further 2.166 thousand are suffering from moderate to mild mental health problems. The treatment gap for mental health is also extremely very high, and these are things that we have to look at and treat them because they are human beings. They have their basic rights and must be treated as Ghanaians and just like you and I.
So I think to be able to address this whole issue of stigma, we need to know, and I know you've been conducting some researches around this area, what is accounting for the stigma?
First, I would say maybe lack of knowledge. We are not aware, we don't know what to do, and also behavior. Because we believe that when people have certain diseases, they must know their dignity and their rights are at stake, or we don't need to respect them because they don't have a voice. And that is one thing. Two, if you look at it, resources are not there for everybody. We have very limited resources, and people think that to address stigma issues, we must isolate certain people so that the few resources we are fighting for should be the able people. And I think that is one of the things. Family systems are broken. You know, in the past, the family is there for you. But currently, we look at just the nuclear family, myself and my wife and my children or my husband. And so the extended family system that we used to have as a country, I mean, it's no more very strong. And so I think it's one of the things that we are having, we see as a challenge when it comes to mental disorder.
But who would you blame if you want to talk about ignorance, for instance? Whose job is it to create awareness? Whose job is it to talk to the community and educate them on how to deal with some of these patients?
We are all part of it. I can't point finger on one or two people. I think we all have a role to play. One, civil society has a lot of role to play. The government and the media, I mean, all the authorities, the institutions that are there to create knowledge and give us information are there. But unfortunately, if you look at the resources for mental health, about 98% of resources to address mental health problems are from donors. And so we have mental health authority, we have the board, all those people are there, but you can't put all these things in these systems in place without resourcing them to do their work. And so I believe that resources to address mental, because the country is not seeing that as a priority. We don't have the resources to address it. Civil society has a lot of capacity to do that. Media, look at the media. We all run to media when we want a lot of things to be said. If you want political popularity or issues, you run to media. And because that is what you want to promote for your selfish or for yourself, you forget about the social issues that is affecting Ghanaians, which is the mental problem. And so what I'm trying to say is that, fine, we have the board, mental health board, we have mental health authority, we have Ghana Health Service, civil society, media. We need our own resources as a country to address and create awareness from school to when you even grow. From all the basics, they should know that stigma, mental health is a problem that can affect even children. And from the statistics that I saw, mental health starts from age 14. And so if we don't start addressing some of these issues immediately, we think that it is when the person starts throwing dresses or being naked that I think we are really, really missing a big point as a country.
Definitely, and we'll be looking at how the stigma affects the treatments administered to these patients. But let me acknowledge the Chief Executive of the Mental Health Authority, Dr. Kwesi Osei, who is joining us on the phone. Good afternoon to you, Doc. Thanks for your time. Dr. Kwesi Osei, you are on the pulse, and I'm grateful that you've joined us.
Thank you.
I think we're struggling to hear Dr. Kwesi Osei. We'll fix our phone lines and for him to join this conversation because it's very important for him. But so we know that this stigma, in a way, affects how we administer or how we treat patients, mental health patients.
Yes.
How does it affect the treatment?
One, you know, the family thinks that if people know that we have mental health, maybe somebody having that problem in our family, the whole family is stigmatized. Even when you are going to marry, they say look into the family. If they have anything like mental health, then that means that don't go and marry from that family. It starts from our own culture, our perception as human or as a country, and the way we treat. So because of that, when people start showing any sign of mental health or mental problem, we hide and lock them because of stigma.
Yeah.
We think that the neighbors will start pointing fingers at us. We don't treat them. We forget about their dignity as a human being. So that is one. Two, so because of that, we lock them. We believe that is spiritual. And so we send them to prayer camps. We start using different kind of treatment until it gets very worse. And when they get to the mental hospital, I'm talking of the severe one, and then we neglect it, we hand those people back to the government, thinking that they are forgotten because we have nothing to do with them. I think it's rather unfortunate. This is what is contributing to the stigma.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me try once more. The Chief Executive Officer of the Mental Health Authority, Dr. Kwesi Osei. If you can hear me, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon. I can hear you. Can you hear
I
me?
appreciate your time this afternoon, but we've just identified that lack of education, lack of awareness are some of the reasons why we're having people stigmatize these mental patients. The mental authority, the Mental Health Authority, when it was set up, we thought was going to resolve some of these issues. What has been your challenge in dealing with the stigma issue?
Yeah, thank you very much, and good afternoon to your listeners and viewers. Yes, the authority was established, and it was supposed to function with a proviso that it's like a decade that has been given to you, and you are not given the requisite fuel to fuel it. Then you'll not be able to function, go around the countryside to be given the public education that is needed. What is lacking now is the adequate funding. We are not given adequate funding at all. Remember when we were talking about the Mental Health Act, we said, one, we needed the Parents Act. Two, we needed an airline legislative instrument. And three, we needed a levy, mental health levy, to be able to give us the requisite funding. Now we have the airline in place, only just about 3 weeks ago, but the levy is not there. And without the levy and without the funding, it then becomes difficult for us to execute all our functions in our mandate. That is where we are, and that's the problem.
But how dangerous is this situation? Because if there's no funding to take care of these mental patients, I'm sure it's very dire for the country.
Yeah, that's serious. That's serious. And I think that everybody will recognize it as fact. It poses security threat. Security that is not only a question of somebody taking up a gun, but if you are walking on the street and you encounter somebody coming and you're not sure how that person is going to handle you, that is obviously a security threat. And as I'm sure many of you would have seen every now and then the numbers of persons with mental illness, severe mental illness roaming the streets, not only in Accra, but all the capital cities, towns and villages. The numbers are increasing every day, and that is really a serious threat. Apart from that, imagine the productivity that is locked up within these people because they are not functioning, they are not gaining the benefit of their output. All these are issues that affect the growth of the country.
I'm surprised that such an authority will be established because I remember the noise that was made about this whole authority. And then after the LI being passed, just like you're indicating, there's still no funding. Have you had any engagement with, for instance, government, the Ministry of Health? What has been the response you're getting for the lack of funding for the authority?
Constant and daily engagement. We are giving promises every now and then. In fairness, if as a result of, or at least partly a result of the engagement that we now have with LI, which, as I said, was started only 3 weeks ago, after 7 years of the parent lobbying plan. What I'm hoping is that we will not take another 7 years for the levy to be established. The levy needs to be established. Then we'll get a requisite funding. Otherwise, whatever we can get becomes only a token, because the levy cannot meet our needs. We need a levy where everybody is contributing to it. If you make it voluntary people to contribute, they will not. A sister station of yours some time back, 2-3 years ago, decided to embark on a campaign for the general public who feel concerned. If the government is not doing much, what about the general public? They were only able to raise 300 cedis for 3 years to date, meaning people are not interested. So just putting a law, a levy, that forces everybody to contribute to something. Then you have the necessary funding to embark on all the beautiful programs we have in the law.
But have you had this discussion yet with this beautiful recommendation you're giving?
Yes, we have. We've had with them. We've had with the government over the years. We've had with them. And we are probably something now and then that is being looked at, and it looks like the pipeline is very, very long.
So what do you read in government's response to this recommendation? Is it that they are not interested, or you think there's no lack of will, there's a lack of will to do it?
In fairness, I think we are at a particular time of our political and national economic development that the government thinks, or the government feels, that we should remove a lot of taxes. And we are also asking the government to put in place this particular tax for it. So if I was sitting there as a government, probably I would find it challenging. We are removing taxes and we are asking them to put in place a tax. But we have also been given alternative arrangements, that it does not need to be a new tax. It can be part of existing taxes. That just take a little bit of this or that, some 4 or 5 taxes, put them together. You will have enough. Because this is very important. The other thing is that I frankly don't even think that if you went to the people of Ghana, that we are putting in a tax, new tax giving for a very vulnerable person like a person with mental illness in the street. The Ghanaian would have much difficulty with that. I'm sure that one of these days we need to conduct some study to see what the Ghanaian response will be. But I think that it is a certain apprehension of the government that maybe that might work the plight of Ghanaians and the demand of them.
Doc, I'll have you hold for a minute and come to the studio. You've just heard him enumerate how the authority is frustrated because government is not giving it fund, and he describes it like a vehicle without fuel, so it definitely cannot move. Yeah. How do we move away from here? Because people, the issue keeps compounding by the day. People still get mentally retarded every day, and it's not like the situation is being resolved. So we are getting worse every day.
Yes. I think just like he was saying, you could just see that passion and frustration in his voice and the whole thing when he was talking. And it's the same way many of us feel, especially civil society organizations who are always faced with this kind of situation. In communities, people call you because they believe that you are there. I think we must prioritize our needs as a country. He talked about tax. You know, there are so many things happening. What is our priority? If Ghanaians, majority from the statistics I just gave, a lot of people have one form of mental disorder. It's not only throwing your this thing. So the government must know that something is happening. We must allocate resources. We are talking about tax. The monies we are collecting, it is not just for infrastructure. We also need this kind of thing because you still have the socially excluded among us. So I think that a lot of advocacy is very necessary. It is not political issue. It is country issue. And we must address it. Yes, I said that 98% of funding for mental health is from donors. I know DFID put in a lot of resources. I'm very much aware. How long are we going to depend on donors to solve our health problems in this country? And so we should start looking at our own domestic resources. We must start looking at every corner. There are so many things happening. We are in Ghana and we know what is happening. If we don't resource the systems and the institutions that the government put in place to do what they're supposed to do, like the Mental Health Authority, the board, and all those people, I think we will be in trouble. If you go to our mental hospitals, it's so sad. I mean, it's a bit, people have to, they have to rely on benevolent people philanthropies. I know the government give them something, but it's woefully inadequate. We can't continue running a country like this. They are Ghanaians. They have their rights. And so we should start looking at it. We must come together and do this advocacy.
I think one of the things that will meet this proposal, Doc, your proposal for taxing people so that we can take care of mentally ill people, is the fact that this money, for instance, if introduced, may not be put to good use. And they can give you a lot of examples. The road tolls, for instance, we still have a number of bad roads in the country, even though we're paying road tolls, and recently it was even increased. What is the fundamental problem that we have that we haven't resolved? The reason we are still here?
Well, I can speak for myself or for the authority. If the government puts in this levy and collects the money and it's not business, I will have the patients themselves to go to the government and collect the money. You can't collect money in the name of the vulnerable patient and not give it to them. So I think that would even be much of a problem to us. Let the fund be established, and we'll look at the next step.
So have you looked elsewhere? I know a number of people donate so much for the mental health authority or even the mental hospital. I know there are a lot of people who donate. Have you looked for private entities to also support? Have you made those moves yet?
It is interesting. People are simply not interested. That is why I don't always want to blame the government. The Kenyan citizenry is simply not interested. We have made proposals, we send proposals to private organizations. We go, they look into our field and tell us that mental health is not our area of priority. You can't believe that. Mental health is not our area of priority.
Wow.
What else is their priority? But that is the situation. And that's why I think that the government must live up to its responsibility of looking for the resource for it. And we have all identified together that the levy is the way forward. Yes, national health insurance, we are not on it. People are saying that we should put ourselves on insurance. I agree. But we are coming from a point of practically zero. So the national health insurance will help us to make for operational costs. But the infrastructure and other things we need to put in place. We need a certain external, by external, I don't mean outside Ghana, but funding outside the NHIS to complement whatever you can get from the NHIS. The levy is, to me, mandatory. And we are really going to put in all our efforts. Now that we've got the airline pass, that is our next major area of advocacy and lobby to make sure that it's passed.
So in the interim, Doc, how is the authority going to be managing this situation? It's been there for a while now. And whilst we considered your proposal, how is the authority going to deal with this issue? Because you have a mandate and people expect you to be accountable. Would you sit down and fold your arms?
Well, people need to recognize that the mandate is a dual mandate. The mandate, part of the mandate is to provide the resources. If the resources are not there, then it's difficult to fully execute the mandate. So as we give the education, we get people to understand that we all have the responsibility also to let the government understand. Governments are listening everywhere they listen. So let's tell the government that the people need it. That just put in place this measure for it. And we all be fine.
Many thanks to you, Dr. Akwesi is the Chief Executive of the Mental Health Authority. We're grateful for your time this afternoon. And of course, I'm sure he was speaking your language. And I've just given you an example why people will criticize or actually have a problem with this taxation he's talking about. It may be a good thing though, but what have we seen with other taxes that we've paid? Has it been put to good use? If it ever happens that government listening to this proposal and it happens, how would you recommend that these taxes be put to good use or for its intended purpose?
I think before anything, we should really look at we should plug a lot of loopholes when it comes to collecting money. Because people believe that public money or government money is for everybody. The first thing is to look at it and block all those who, and then accountability and transparency is very important. 2, an independent body that will manage the fund. It shouldn't be put into a common basket for like how all other funds are that anybody can afford. So it should be managed by an entity, because like the authority is being held accountable for the what they're supposed to do. They don't have. So I would suggest that an independent body that will be approved by Ghanaians, and we should all monitor and hold them accountable. And then we contribute to it. We are paying so much tax. But I still feel that we need to pay more tax, because if you are talking of development, it should be the tax. But then if you pay the tax and you are not seeing the results, that is where we are all crying. Where is the money going? We are talking of mental health. We are talking of AIDS fund. So many funds that are not being implemented. The LI has been, what are we waiting for? I think it is important to let the government know that the availability and collecting fund, tax, using them properly is the only way to increase our domestic resources for health and to address all these problems. There are so many problems. It's not only mental health, but it's one of the major problems where donors put in money. What about others that donors are putting money? We should hold our own, we should be responsible for our health and monitor the resources that come in for health.
But whilst at this, have you also considered the preventive measures of preventing people from getting even into this mental illness so that problems will keep compounding?
Yes, I think what we do as an organ, which I know many civil society organizations are doing, is to educate. You know, I said that mental health starts from, you start looking from age 14.
Okay.
And so we try to bring in families. You need resources, but we can do a lot of things without resources.
Okay.
Because we are in the community. So education, awareness, providing all the support. The family system is very important, where parents must be responsible for their children.
Yeah.
You see, if we don't start all these social issues, our traditional system that has existed, I think we wait for things to happen before we start running around. I think that is where I think there's a problem. As a country, we should go back to our preventive health. I always talk about it. Prevention, prevention, prevention is the cheapest way to go instead of looking at curative. If you put in a lot of money into prevention at the lower level, I think you are in to invest, to save a lot of money for curative. And so I think that is one thing, media has a big role to play. All of us, and I think it's something we should prioritize as a country.
I think we'll be monitoring, and we're wishing you all the best in the kind of good work you're doing. We're hoping that government will make some funding available, and of course also consider this proposal of taxation to deal with some of these issues in our society. I'm grateful for your time, Cecilia Senu, for passing by. Cecilia Senu is the immediate past vice president of the Coalition of Health NGOs, and you also work with
Non-State Actors Ghana as the president now, and then executive director of Hope for Future Generations.
Thank you so much for your time. And